Fox, National Convenor of Scotland's fifth biggest political party.
Yep.
Comrades, God spoke to me yesterday. God wrote most of this speech. So if you've got anything to take up to God. Comrades, it was the 100th anniversary of the Parliamentary Labour Party last month, and apparently there was a special gathering to mark the occasion, where Tony Blair led the singing of the red flag. And I must say, news of that reminded me of the occasion when John Redwood mouthed the Welsh national anthem. It was rumoured at the occasion that Blair had to come to people and say, "The people's flag is deepest," it's blue, isn't it? Deepest blue. 100 years ago, James Keir Hardie came to Dundee like us. In fact, he toured the country 100 years ago and argued then, "See the Liberals," he said. "See the Liberals, the working people voted for them. They don't give a monkeys about working people. We need a party of our own." And together with the forerunner of the RMT and others, James Keir Hardie went on to found a party of working people. He founded the Labour Party. Here we are 100 years later, and the message of the Scottish Socialist Party in Dundee at this conference is, you see the Labour Party, they don't give a damn about working people anymore. We need a party of our own, and this is that party. The Scottish Socialist Party has inherited the tradition, the pioneering spirit, and above all the message of James Keir Hardie. Last Saturday afternoon, after I'd done the stall in Princes Street protesting about pension rights being taken away, I went home, turned on the TV, and lo and behold, I found that New Labour's Scottish Conference was on TV on BBC Two, and Jack McConnell was doing his keynote speech. And the TV camera panned to the audience, as it probably is doing at this very moment, and there, lo and behold, one delegate was fast asleep. Now, I know you're thinking, well, only one? She was fast asleep, this woman. It looked as though she had been sedated. You might have thought it was Walter Wolfgang in drag. And I remember thinking, I'm going to watch this speech because after all I've got to do the same thing next Saturday. And Jack McConnell stood up and he said that he's proud of New Labour's record. It's nice of him to take the blame. New Labour welcomes people to Scotland, they said, as part of their Fresh Talent initiative. Well, I certainly remember him welcoming David Cameron to the Parliament. I remember it because it was the same week that he refused to see the American anti-war activist Cindy Sheehan when she came to the Hall of Parliament. And I remember Jack McConnell's welcoming government breaking into people's houses in Glasgow in the dead of night and terrorising women and children and forcing them out of the country. Yeah, I remember New Labour's record. The party tells us of social justice. Well, New Labour defends the hated council tax and opposed our bill in the Scottish Parliament, telling us that the rich won't like it if we tax them. They'll consider it a disincentive and they'll leave the country. Well, it's interesting, apparently, that the people, pensioners and low-paid workers across Scotland, of whom it is a terrible disincentive, are no concern of New Labour's. The concerns of New Labour are those of the rich and the millionaires. They forget pensioners and low-paid workers. And perhaps, let me say this, perhaps nothing better illustrates where Labour stand in the battle between corporate greed and basic human needs than the current scandal around about the gas price increases. How apt in a day like today, when people have travelled from all over Scotland, some of them through 10 inches of snow to get here, and the cold-related deaths that the National Health Service will report in due course. How appropriate. Scottish Gas and Centrica declare record-breaking profits on the one hand. Scottish Gas's profits this quarter are up 95% on what they were last quarter. And they turn round and increase their prices by 27%, forcing 3 million people across Britain into the danger of cold-related death. And what did Jack McConnell say when we press him about it in the Parliament? Will he prevent these increases? No, he says, it would be wrong to intervene and to regulate on commercial decisions. Well, I wrote to Scottish Gas and demanded that they freeze their prices, which are already too high. I wrote to them and I demanded that they abolish the standing charges for pensioners and the poor. How many times are we to see senior citizens paying for the gas pipe that comes from the street to their front door? That's the stark difference between New Labour, the defenders of corporate gas corporations, and the interests of the Scottish Socialist Party, who will stand up and say 3 million people more being forced into cold-related deaths in the winter is a scandal and an outrage in 21st century. Discussed at Aviemore last week in the Scottish Labour Party conference. New Labour becomes nuclear Labour. New Labour becomes nuclear Labour. Not satisfied with nuclear weapons of mass destruction in the Clyde. Not satisfied with nuclear waste dotted all around Scotland, buried below the ground. They vote to introduce more nuclear power stations. So instead of having plutonium Jack Cunningham as we had in the past, we now have plutonium Jack McConnell. One to introduce nuclear power stations. Well, this party is against such a development, and we say go in another direction. But I'll tell you what is perhaps the biggest ideological chasm to see in Scottish politics is the chasm between where New Labour and where the Scottish Socialist Party stands in relation to the National Health Service. A few months ago I heard the then Health Secretary John Reid on Radio 4 say that the biggest problem the National Health Service faces in Britain today is, and I quote, the lack of entrepreneurial flair among doctors and dentists. The biggest scandal, the biggest crisis the National Health Service faces, entrepreneurial flair amongst doctors and dentists. And I have to say to you, you consider what that remark means, and it shows New Labour have completely abandoned the founding principles of the National Health Service today. And I have to say to you that we're up to New Labour today, they would not found the National Health Service. New Labour has nothing in common with the decision that was taken 50 years ago to provide a universally free National Health Service available to everyone, regardless of their means. And you begin to see in these remarks and these issues, you begin to remember why so many people didn't vote for Labour in 2003. By any political measure, Labour's political centre of gravity is considerably to the right of working people, and in my view that pendulum is beginning clearly to swing back. There is all to play for in Scottish politics as far as the battle for hearts and minds of people is concerned. And let's not forget that more than 10,000 people deserted New Labour in the Dunfermline and West Fife by-elections in the space of 9 months. New Labour don't give a monkeys about working people, and that message is widely accepted, more widely accepted than ever before. But of course the challenge that faces this party at this conference is to persuade people of our case. 130,000 people voted for this party in 2003. And I'm determined to win back their support, their loyalty and their trust. And that is the challenge that faces this party. Trust. There's a word you don't hear much in Scottish politics. We said in the Scottish Socialist Party we would introduce a bill to abolish the hated council tax, and we did. We said we'd introduce a bill to abolish prescription charges, and we did. We said we'd introduce a bill to introduce free school meals, healthy nutritious meals for every child in Scotland, and we have. And consider the debate in the Scottish Parliament so telling on the issue of the council tax. In Dunfermline, the Liberal Democrats were running about High Valleyfield, Dunfermline, Oakley, Blair Hall and everywhere else saying, we'll scrap the council tax. We'll replace it with an income-based alternative. And it came to the vote in the Scottish Parliament to scrap the council tax and replace it with an income-based alternative. And what did they do? They voted against. They voted against. And I remember speaking in the debate and saying, and Dunfermline and the rest of Scotland, they run about saying we're in favour of scrapping the council tax, but here in the Scottish Parliament, when they've a chance to do something about it, they vote to keep it. I said, presiding officer, it's enough to drive a party leader to drink, so it is. And I see this day, isn't it interesting, that they elect a party leader, only the Liberal Democrats can elect a party leader called Ming. It reminds me of the phrase in the song of Bob Marley, I'm sure this will be their campaign song, it's Dunfermline made Curtis Mayfield singing, move on up with the Scottish Socialist Party. Well, the Liberal Democrats will now have Bob Marley singing, we're minging. They're the mingers of Scottish politics and know what to say. I couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of people. I have to say that the Scottish Socialist Party, trust is important to us. We stand for election and we do what we say we do when we seek your election. We stood for election in the Scottish Parliament to represent working people as workers' MSPs on workers' wages, and that's what we've done every single month since 2003. Like absolutely everybody in Britain be clear, the Scottish Socialist Party is the united left party in Scotland, and with all due respect, it will remain so. No one else deserves it, and no one else has deserved that mantle. The Scottish Socialist Party is the only party in Scotland which has trade union values at its heart, which is passionate about independence and an independent socialist Scotland, and is proud to call itself the anti-war party. The Scottish Socialist Party has given unflinching support to workers in struggle from the very time and hour they began. To the Fire Brigade Union, to the nursery nurses, to the bus drivers, to the civil servants, to the postal workers, and earned a reputation as the one party who stands up for trade unionists. No trade unionist who's ever sought the help of this party has been turned away empty-handed, not once, and I'm proud of that record, and it will continue. I'm delighted to see the affiliation of the RMT in this party. I know it's something that every single member of the party is proud of, and we have close links with the PCS and the FBU as well. And indeed on Tuesday, this party will be joining the university lecturers on their picket line and their rallies across Scotland and their strike for better pay. Scotland stands for an independent socialist Scotland. That's our defining policy. We want a modern, democratic, independent republic. Yes, a workers' republic in the traditions of Maclean and the Red Flag Cycles. And I'm proud that this party has been instrumental in launching the Independence Convention and doing so much to promote the cause of independence when others have gone cold on the issue. And if we have to look at David Cameron's effect on the national question, consider a revival of the Tories south of the border and what that will do to raise the whole spectre of the democratic deficit, self-determination and the reason why we have a Scottish Parliament in the first place. And incidentally, can I say this about the Tories also in conference this weekend on the banks of the Silvery Tay? I noticed that even they have come out in favour of making poverty history. Did you see it? Now that's when you know a phrase has lost all its meaning, when the coalition has gone too far. Let me tell David Cameron, why do you not read? Let me give you a piece of advice. Go and read the works of Malcolm X, who said, just as you can't have capitalism without racism, you can't have capitalism without poverty. So David Cameron, if you're in favour of make poverty history, surely the next step, now this would be a jump, David Cameron coming out and saying, make capitalism history. But I tell you what, if you want to see that the reason that message is clearer than it's ever been, this morning on TV, I watched pictures from Kenya and the Horn of Africa, where there are now 11 million people dying of malnutrition because of the drought. 11 million people. And Hilary Benn came on the TV and said, what can we do? We can't make it rain. Let me tell you, Hilary Benn, I've been to California. There's water shortages in California every year. I've been to Kent. In Kent, just now, March, in the middle of this snow, there's a hose pipe ban because there isn't enough water in Kent. But Kent and California don't have to pay back billions of pounds out of their economy and out of the backs of their people. Towards another issue which haunts New Labour. Just as make poverty history will haunt New Labour, for all we've had is weasel words of nothing from Gordon Brown. But there's another issue that haunts New Labour day in and day out, and that's the issue of this occupation, this illegal occupation in Iraq. The Scottish Socialist Party has consistently demanded the immediate withdrawal of British and American troops from Iraq, and I reiterate that demand here today, and you do. It would be irresponsible and could lead to civil war and the undermining of a fledgling democracy. Civil war. 1,400 people have been murdered in Iraq in the last 6 days, and the civil war that has taken place in part because the troops are there occupying a country that should be theirs. Democracy, not from people who illegally invaded and occupy a country in breach of international law to enforce regime change at the barrel of a gun. I won't take lectures from Tony Blair, George Bush, John Reid or any of them about democracy when they have that record. I reiterate, regime change in Iraq is the sole and inviolate right of the Iraqi people themselves and nobody. When there are massive majorities of people in Britain, in America, and most damningly of all in Iraq itself, the vast majority of people want to see those troops removed back home to where they came from. They dare lecture us about democracy. The Scottish Socialist Party, every last one of us here is entitled to be fiercely proud at the principled position the Scottish Socialist Party has taken on the issue of Iraq and the terrific role that our members continue to play in the anti-war movement in Iraq. You see, the Scottish Socialist Party's message is unique, and our campaigning record is second to none. I don't have the time. If I had time, I could talk about the terrific work we've done in defending asylum seekers in the west of Scotland, the terrific work we've been doing in drawing attention to the torture flights that are landing in our airports, the terrific work your comrades in the PCS are doing and the DWP strike, the terrific work that Carolyn and Rosemary are doing in Ayrshire and Lanarkshire and fighting against hospital closures. There are many, many things the Scottish Socialist Party can be proud of, and many, many successes in the last year that we can point to. More than 150 people have joined this party since last October, among them John McCallion, who's sitting in this audience appropriately in the city of this year and celebrating the terrific success of the Edinburgh Stock Transfer vote. We won many people over with our bill to abolish prescription charges. And I also want to say, at this conference, I want to extend my thanks to all those comrades and pay credit to those comrades who fought in this party against the 30-day ban meted out against the MSPs and the £30,000 fine that was levied against us by the Scottish Parliament. And I think it's an absolutely terrific initiative that we have this CD, Fight the Power, Defend Socialism, with Benjamin Zephaniah and others who have contributed their time to that cause. Because you know, when you consider that background, the apparent universal truth of Scottish politics, if you listen to the press assembled here at the side, the apparent universal truth is that the Scottish Socialist Party is finished. That we, well, I'll tell you what, we make a habit of upsetting forecasting the Scottish Socialist Party. 4 years ago, in the run-up to the 2003 election, the same gentlemen in the press were telling us that we wouldn't get 6 MSPs elected in 2003. You write off the Scottish Socialist Party at your peril, because the simple truth is, all the reasons for the emergence of the Scottish Socialist Party remain. When the right of politics in Scotland as Britain is cluttered with Labour and Tory and SNP and New Liberals, the left of Scottish politics is the terrain of this party and this party alone. And it remains ironic that Tony Blair is probably the biggest recruiting sergeant the Scottish Socialist Party has. And we intend to fight tooth and nail in the coming year to defend the positions we have won at Holyrood, and indeed to get 8 seats in the regional elections at Scottish Parliament in 2007. Comrades, we've launched this morning the People Not Profit campaign, which will be our key initiative for 2006. Our unique message is that we alone will put the interests of working people of Scotland ahead of the corporate agenda of the Royal Bank of Scotland and HBOS and Shell and Lexmark and Scottish Gas and the rest of them. Corporate social responsibility, remember that phrase? Well, corporate social responsibility is, Ricky Tomlinson would have it, corporate social responsibility, my arse. Tell it to Motorola, tell it to Lexmark, tell it to Scottish Gas. I make this pledge on behalf of the Scottish Socialist Party to the people of Scotland. If you fight to defend your pension rights from those who would have to pay more, work longer and expect less in return, we will stand by you. If you want to stand up for quality public services in Scotland, the SSP will stand beside you. If you fight to defend our services against privatisation, the privatisation of our publicly owned assets, the SSP will not let you fight alone. I offer you the services of Scotland's fifth biggest political party. Our work inside and outside the Parliament is at your disposal. Pick up the phone and call us. We will be holding, as part of this initiative, a whole series of meetings and rallies across Scotland on the theme of putting people ahead of profits, with a range of speakers and campaigners engaged in that process. Comrades, the need for socialism and the need for the Scottish Socialist Party is greater than ever. Sure, this party has come through a torrid time of it in the last year, but I tell you what, standing here, looking out across this conference, standing as the national convener and looking out across this party, you can see we have come through it. We have come through it and are well on our way to recovering the support, the self-confidence and the support of the 130,000 people who voted for our proud, radical socialist programme in 2003. And I want to finish on this point. The Sunday Herald asked me in December for my New Year resolution, and I said to them provocatively that I aim to go to Latin America. I intend to go to Latin America to find out why it is that one country after another, in Bolivia, in Chile, in Argentina, in Uruguay, in Brazil and Venezuela, why one country after another votes for socialist presidents and socialist governments when the Sunday Herald is forever telling us that socialism is finished and belongs to the long and distant past. And I tell you, do you know the Sunday Herald in typical fashion, I wrote I aim to travel to Latin America, and typical of the year we've had with aim, they made the mistake of writing I am to go to Latin America. You know, coincidentally, the Scottish Socialist Party has just received an invitation from the Party of Socialism and Liberation to solve a significant breakaway from the Communist Party themselves, to send a speaker to their conference at the end of this month in Sao Paulo in Brazil. That's the message the Scottish Socialist Party sends out. That's the reputation we have internationally. Last year, when I was elected as the national convener, I said the best days of the Scottish Socialist Party are ahead of us. That remains true, because we understand that another world is possible and indeed is demanded, and we here are the people who are engaged in building it. Comrades, the future of mankind in Kenya and elsewhere, in Scotland and elsewhere, depends on people like you and I the world over. Let's move forward together. Thank you very much.